Imagine creating a company in your garage, only to be fired from it. Most people would have given up. But not Steve Jobs. He turned rejection into reinvention, and returned to transform Apple into one of the most valuable companies in the world. This is the story of Steve Jobs. In 1976, two young men, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, worked day and night in a small garage in California. They had a vision: to make computers small, personal, and affordable. What began with a few parts and big dreams became Apple Computer. Within a few years, Apple grew rapidly. By his mid-20s, Steve Jobs was a millionaire. He was a creative visionary, but also known for being demanding, intense, and sometimes impossible to work with. Apple launched the Macintosh in 1984, with Jobs proudly introducing it to the world. It was revolutionary: graphical interface, mouse control, sleek design. But sales were weaker than expected, and tensions grew between Jobs and Apple's board. In 1985, the unthinkable happened. At just 30 years old, Steve Jobs was fired from his own company. The company he had built turned its back on him. It was one of the darkest moments of his life. Most would have disappeared. But Jobs later said, "It was awful tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it." Being fired freed him. He was no longer weighed down by success or expectation. He started again. He founded a new company, NeXT Computers, and invested in a small animation studio called Pixar. NeXT Computers didn't sell much, but their technology was advanced. Pixar, on the other hand, would go on to release Toy Story, the first computer-animated film in history. Jobs was quietly shaping the future, even while the world thought he had failed. Meanwhile, Apple without Steve Jobs began to decline. The company lost its direction, products flopped, and innovation slowed. By the mid-1990s, Apple was on the verge of collapse. Desperate, Apple made a bold move: they bought NeXT in 1997. With the deal, Steve Jobs returned to Apple, the very company that once fired him. When Jobs came back, Apple was weeks away from bankruptcy. He slashed unnecessary projects, simplified the product line, and focused on innovation. He said, "We have to make great products, not just okay ones." In 1998, Apple launched the colorful iMac, a hit that revived the company's image. But this was just the beginning. Jobs believed technology should not only work well but also look and feel beautiful. This vision led to the iPod, changing how the world listened to music. Then came the iTunes Store, revolutionizing how music was sold. But his boldest idea was still to come. In 2007, Steve Jobs stood on stage and revealed the iPhone, a device that combined a phone, an iPod, and the internet into one. It didn't just change Apple. It changed the world. Under Jobs, Apple also launched the iPad, the App Store, and the MacBook. His relentless focus on simplicity, design, and user experience turned Apple into not just a tech company, but a cultural icon. By the time of his death in 2011, Apple had become the most valuable company in the world. The man once fired had returned to build a legacy that still shapes our daily lives. Steve Jobs' story is more than just about technology. It's about resilience. He was fired, humiliated, and doubted. Yet he used failure as fuel, never stopped creating, and came back stronger. His journey proves that sometimes, getting knocked down isn't the end. It's the beginning of your greatest chapter. So when life throws you out, remember Steve Jobs. Being fired from his own company became the turning point that allowed him to change the world. Because greatness isn't about never falling. It's about rising every single time you do.